Hey everybody, this is JV. Um, Wanted to do a quick video here. I'm going to do a breakdown of Bird Box. There's a lot of talk going on around about this movie and what it's all about. I've seen some articles and I've seen some things that I thought were a bit of a stretch. So I won't go into detail about exactly what that was. But I do want to give my take on it. I just want to hit on a few things that stood out to me concerning this movie. Let's see here. Now, first of all, let's look at the title Bird Box. Birds are a symbol of freedom. It could be freedom and empowerment through spiritual growth. Box is a reference to containment, restriction. Um, Box corresponds with the Law of 44. Shout out to Blue Pill for the extensive work he's done on that. If you want more information on Law of 44, look him up. It's Blue Pill 44. So the movie begins with Mallory, played by Sandra Bullock. And Mallory's on the river. This happens after she gives girl and boy instructions on survival. She's kind of teaching them what they need to know to survive this journey that they're going on through the water. Now they're traveling by water, and we find out later that it's going to take approximately 48 hours for them to get to the destination. So it's about 2 days. So now, birds are significant. These birds are significant because they sense perceived danger. I believe that these birds represent intuition from a spiritual perspective, and this is my whole analysis of the movie is going to be from a spiritual perspective. So, and they see the unseen and they sense what can't be seen by the naked eye. So basically, the plot of the movie, there are mass suicides occurring in different parts of the world, and it's spreading rapidly. There's an invisible force that's causing people to commit suicide. Now, I interpret death as transition. It is a transition from a focus of consciousness here in this dimension to a focus of consciousness into another dimension. So if we look at death from that perspective, we can glean that this force is causing people to accelerate their transition of consciousness. Now, there are parts of the movie where those who look, because it's deadly, they consider it deadly to look, but those who look say that it's beautiful. That's a beautiful thing. There are references where some people see dead relatives when they look and before they commit suicide. There's an instance where a woman runs out of the house to help save Mallory. She sees the unseen force and begins to talk to her mom. We find out later from her husband that her mom has been dead for 10 years. So it seems that looking creates a lifting of the veil, so to speak, seeing into other realms, seeing the unseen, the spirit realm. Now, I see suicide as a symbolic killing of the flesh or killing of the ego or killing of humanity. There's a scene where a black horse is seen running on TV, again, symbolizing death or transition. Now, there's a brother on there. Most of you probably know him. His name is Charlie on the movie, but he's played by Lil Rel. This guy is writing a novel, and he's trying to justify this event. He's trying to justify, rationalize it through religion. Now, of course, a little spoiler alert. Rel, or Charlie, as he was in the movie, he does die. Now, I believe that this symbolizes how traditional religion is dying. And that's my interpretation of it. So, one thing I noticed, there's a lot of walkie-talkie use, and a lot of walkie-talkie use is symbolic in many post-apocalyptic films. I interpret walkie-talkie use as a search for life among the dead, a search for commonality, a search for consensus and connectivity. Um, you know, Me personally, I know the spiritual journey can be a lonely one. And, you find that you're looking, as you further your growth, you're looking for people to converse with. You find less and less people to converse with. Your circle actually gets smaller, and it's really kind of symbolic in these post-apocalyptic films, the search for survival. Now, there's a brother named Tom. Now, Tom is always trying to save everyone. He's kind of like a Christ figure. He saved Mallory, and he was the one that kept opening the door to the where they were staying at. He kept opening the door and letting people in. I see him as a opener of the way, a Ganesh, a Papa Legba, Zarabanda, a gatekeeper, so to speak. So, now the movie goes back and forth from the present to the events that lead up to the present. Mallory and her two children are on the water, and they hear a male voice. Now, mind you, they're blindfolded, so they cannot see anyone. The camera pans around, and you still don't see anyone. The male voice says, "It's okay to take your blindfold off. I've seen one. I've seen the truth. It's beautiful. Everyone must look." Now, I interpret everyone must look. I believe that's another reference to death because everyone must die. Everyone must transition. And whenever the majority in this movie, whenever they look, they end up committing suicide. So thus, everyone must look or die eventually. So they're holed up in a house, and they eventually make a run for food. Now, while they're in the grocery store, Mallory finds these birds, which is kind of the basis of the movie. My interpretation, on the search for the necessities of life, she discovers intuition because once again, the birds represent intuition. And we said intuition, freedom, and empowerment, spiritual empowerment. Now, Sandra Bullock, or Mallory, represents the ideals given to us by our parents, our family, and society at large. Mallory represents the ego, protecting us from observing and seeing the truth. And that's because that's basically the job of the ego, is to protect us, to preserve life. So they make it back to the house from the food run, and Olivia lets the new guy in. He appears to be seeking refuge, but on the contrary. Now, both Mallory and Olivia both end up going into labor at the same time. I didn't mention this earlier, but they are both pregnant. So they both end up going to labor at the same time. Ironically, at the same time, this new guy comes into the house. So while they're going into labor, the new guy is downstairs and begins to pull out drawings of the entities that are causing the mass suicides. And he goes into the kitchen and he grabs the birds and he sticks them into the freezer because, again, the birds alert them that these entities are nearby. And I see this as him freezing or blocking their intuition because by him putting the birds in the freezer, the birds are not available to warn them that these entities are nearby or something is going awry. So once he puts the birds in the freezer, he begins to open the blinds to let everyone look. Now, I see this guy as a Lucifer figure, and the reason why is that Lucifer was a light bearer, or the bringer of light, and this is what this guy is doing. He is bringing light into the house. He's opening up the shades, and he's saying, hey, you guys need to look. You need to take a look at this. You need to see the truth. All right. So now Mallory calls her two children, which one of them, there's only one of them that is actually her birth child, but she ends up taking care of the other child. I don't give up everything in the movie, but so Mallory calls her two children girl and boy, identifying them by gender. Consequently, she does not name them until they reach their destination, which in essence is a box. Once again, we go back to 44, the law of 44, because they are basically, even though they're safe, they are locked down in a box. They're in a compound. They can't, the only thing they can do is whatever they can do inside of that compound. So essentially, they are locked down. There's a scene where Tom is telling them about a story about climbing a tree and what he sees when he gets to the top. Mallory stops Tom before he finishes his story. She's arguing that him giving them the story will cause them to dream a life that they may never live, and things that they will never have or experience. And she feels that by them believing gives them false hope and causes it could ultimately cause their demise. Tom believes they should have hope, even if they never live out of their dream. Now, once again, I see this as the ego trying to shut down the Christ consciousness that enables them to transcend their physical limitations. Once again, the ego shutting down their ability to dream, to see outside of their current circumstance, outside of their box, because they were still in a box. When they were in that house, they were still limited. They could only go but so far. When they did, they had to use blindfolds. So they were still limited. They were still veiled by physical limitations. Consequently, there comes a scene when Mallory finishes Tom's story. However, her version was different than Tom's. However, Mallory's version ironically foretold the end of the movie. It's as if, through her words, she manifested the details of the compound. It was exactly as she had completed the story when she was telling Girl. The ending is very similar to Book of Eli. It was very Book of Eli-ish, with references to the blind, because the compound ended up being a school for the blind. And I'm assuming that's why they weren't affected, because they couldn't see. It's interesting that once they reached their destination, they released the birds. And to me, I see this as them releasing their intuition, their freedom, their empowerment. I guess it was no longer needed, because why would they need it? They're safe now. So now that they're saved from the perceived danger, they are no longer free, which is the trade-off. They are now confined to a box, which is the bird box. And they are safe, but no longer free. And, to me, that's no way to live. So my interpretation, what it basically gets down to is that the only way to get out of this box, and that's for any of us, the only way to get out of this box is to lift the veil, to kill the flesh, the ego, and to look into the spirit realm. The only way out is to take the blindfold off and to see the truth. In order to see the truth, you have to release the fear. And I do believe, as they said in the movie, it is a beautiful thing. That's my interpretation. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you think in the comments. Please click like, subscribe, and peace out.